SaaS Therapy.
Welcome back to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. My name is Todd Kirk. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, as well as a phenomenal guest, Dave Blake. Dave Blake is the founder and CEO of Client Success, a company that provides the number one software for customer success teams. With a background as a SaaS executive, Dave is an expert in customer success and entrepreneurship. Prior to founding Client Success, Dave served as Vice President of Global Customer Success at Adobe, where he directed a global team of approximately 115 account managers and achieved a 100% retention rate of strategic customers. Dave is a graduate of Brigham Young University and is based in Lehi, Utah. He's a thought leader in the industry and frequently shares his insights on customer success, leadership, and entrepreneurship on LinkedIn and other platforms. And we love having him here. I'm so happy to have you here, Dave. Welcome to SaaS Therapy.
Hey, thanks, Todd. It's good to be with you and Casey. Hey, it's a good day for SaaS Therapy any day. So,
isn't that right?
Well, I think we need to give a plug, Todd, already for Dave with his CS 100 forum community that you've created. That's outside of Client Success .com that you run, but that organization for the CS people out there, if you're not part of CS 100, be part of it. It is an amazing community. A lot of the guests that you've already had or heard on this podcast have come from the CS 100. But Dave, that's an episode for a different day. But man, what a lasting legacy you've created in that. So well done in that.
Well, thank you. We're excited. It's the CS 100 Summit has been a phenomenal experience for us, and we really try to create an experience for customer success leaders there, and welcome anybody to join us this fall, this September at that event. So,
well, Dave, let's get to know you.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a great bio. 100% at Adobe. That's another thing that, Todd, that we could actually dive into is how the heck did you do that? How did you manage 150 CS people also? That's another episode for another day. But for today, we want to get to know you just a little bit more about you and your personality. So question number one, this is this or that. Do you prefer movies or books?
Movies. I'm not a book guy. I'm actually not that much of a movie guy, to be honest with you. But I like to read short form reading and blogs, and I like to listen to podcasts like this. But probably if I needed to just unwind, I'd probably unwind in front of a movie over a book.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, this might set up answer number two.
Okay.
Do you prefer beach vacations or mountain retreats?
Beach. Yeah. I love anywhere where I can be in water. And so, I'm from Utah, so I love the mountains, to be honest with you. I love to ski, but I love to just be anywhere in the water. Just the water, the sound of the waves. Or I'm a lake guy as well. I love to surf behind a boat.
Okay.
Wake surfing. So anytime I can be in the water at a lake or a beach or anywhere, I'm there. That's my favorite spot.
Awesome. Cheeseburger or normal hamburger?
Cheeseburger.
Right? Is there anything else? Like it has to be a
cheesy guy. Yeah, cheeseburger for sure.
Adventure sports or a relaxing day at the spa?
Probably adventure sports. I'm a sport guy. I've played sports my whole life. So anytime I can get outside, anytime I can compete, I love that.
All right. Now this last question might not apply to all of our audience, Dave. It might not apply to you, so you can say neither. But NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys?
Oh, I like them both. I don't know if I can tell. I'll take them both.
You'll take them both. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
I like all the boy bands. In fact, I would say New Edition. Add that to your list. New Edition back in the day.
That's awesome.
I love it. Dave, that's one of my favorite things about this is I always feel like I really do learn special things about our guests that I didn't expect. Sometimes I walk away with new takeaways, which is, you know what? Boy bands are still relevant. That's my takeaway there. And they will continue to be. So Dave, let's jump in. One of the reasons we were hoping to talk to you today is recently I saw a conversation that you were having online about NPS scores and their relevance. And I'd be curious from your perspective, that it's kind of a hot topic, right? Are they good? Are they not? What's your perspective on NPS? Is it something people should care about or focus on?
This is a big topic, and it's somewhat so polarizing. I love to jump in the fray because what I see is that everybody's just bagging on NPS these days. They're like, NPS is old, it's outdated, it was meant for B2C instead of B2B. My emphatic answer is like, it depends on what you're using it for. Mm. And most people are saying throw it out because they're asking the question if NPS is relevant to predict retention or churn, right? Hmm. Is it a very good predictor to understand if a customer is going to leave you or not? And if you were using it that way, I say agree. I would not use it that way. And what I try to tell everybody is that NPS used in the right way can be helpful. Is it the end all be all metric? No, by no means. But can it be a very valuable and useful way to understand customer sentiment, understand the customer experience? Absolutely. And so I think in my feedback is always around NPS is don't throw it out. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Use it for the right purposes, and then it can be valuable for your company.
Dave, what are some of those purposes? So yeah. I totally agree. If for some reason in our culture today, it's you either do this or you don't do it. We've lost the ability to understand. It could be this and that. Data is data. It's great to have data. I think everyone would love to have as much data as possible as I'm working with an account. So what are some of those right reasons that I would still keep an NPS and have that?
Yeah, Casey, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Data is data, and any information I can get from my customer from any source, it can be valuable data for me. My goal is to understand really what the customer experience is, where the challenges are, where we're doing well, and where we can improve. And I want to have as many signals as possible to really understand that. And so the way I look at it is NPS is one signal, can be one signal to help me understand the customer experience, customer sentiment, validate things that we understand, learn new information. And so where we say feedback is a gift, I'll take feedback wherever I can, including NPS. And so that's the perspective I put it in, is it's just one signal, one listening post that I can use to supplement all the other channels of listening and feedback that I have throughout my business. And so that's how we use it at Client Success. We use it as one method to understand the customer experience and one method to identify areas of priority to improve that experience. And that's about it, but it's super valuable. And I'm not discounting it because we get very valuable information that allows us to validate things or learn and improve. And that's what we're going for.
Dave, it's interesting. One of the things that has been enlightening for me since we started this podcast is the fact that Casey's the sales guy. I come from the product world. Yeah. And the metrics that have always been really prominent in more of like a product-led metric type world, Google has their heart funnel or the heart metrics that they focus on. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the pirate metric system. And
I haven't heard metrics. That one. We got to talk about that.
Okay. So I'll talk about those for those of you who haven't heard about really quickly. So pirate, the reason it's called pirate is the acronym spells out R. Right. Yeah. Which is kind of silly, but it basically is, are people aware of the product? Are you acquiring new users? So acquisition of new users. Are you activating new users? Right. So are these people taking actions that you want them to do? Are you retaining those users? And that's oftentimes when we think of retention in the client success world, it's about, do they keep paying us? But retention in a product world is, do users keep coming back to the product? Yeah. So that's more of an adoption type metric. There's referral. So referral is NPS, right? How likely would you be to recommend us to other people? And the last one is revenue, which is, are they willing to keep paying? So the ultimate retention model from a churn perspective is the last R, but there's all these other things that are the pirate metrics actually focus on. Google's HEART framework, if you're curious about that, stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. So happiness is one of those core things. And what is NPS measuring? Are they happy? And so I think your point of taking a more holistic view into your customer and how they're operating is really important. And NPS is a piece of a mosaic of elements to help you better understand your customers.
Yeah, I kind of maybe take a little bit different view on NPS, is that I'm not measuring happiness. I'm trying to understand the customer experience. And you could say those are the same thing. But there's a lot of studies out there, and our friend Greg Danes, we could bring him up a lot in here because he's done a lot of a lot of these analyses. But happy customers aren't necessarily customers that renew, and unhappy customers are not necessarily customers who churn.
Right.
There's a paradox, and so I'm just looking for feedback, and generally what I'm hoping for, and what we really try to emphasize in our NPS is, I want a score that's nice, that's indicative, but I want the comments is what I'm looking for. And then what I want to do, if I don't get the comments, I'm using that as a way to engage in a conversation. So I look at the NPS as just the start of a conversation. And hopefully they can share that, it may be the only part of the conversation may be the feedback that they give me. It could be a number, 0 to 10, or it could be a number with comments. But the real value for us is to carry that conversation forward and understand, hey, you gave us a 3. Let's talk about it. What can we do to do better? Or you gave us a 9. Why did you give us a 9? And what areas, where can we improve? Because we know that we can always improve. So I look at more as trying to understand the experience than the happiness. And I think that's key.
I love that. 2 questions follow up on that. This is so good, by the way. Thank you for this. I'm learning a ton on this. Question number 1, what are some best practices on how frequently do you send something out with an NPS? And do you just do the standard questions, or do you have a unique approach to that? So that's question 1. And then question 2, it's funny. I just came back from a cruise, and it was fascinating how many times the interactions I had with doing an excursion, the person would say, hey, at the end of this, you're going to get a survey, please mark the survey high. And if you're not going to mark it high, I'm not this person, I'm somebody else. And they always make a joke about it. Right. So how do you get honest feedback where maybe the CS person might have some type of bonus or some type of monetary value associated with an NPS? How do you keep the CS person from not asking for pity, but giving real feedback? So number 1, best practices and frequency and questions. And then number 2, how do you make sure that the data is, or the survey feedback's honest with that?
Yeah, great questions. I think frequency, we do it probably 3 times a year is the frequency, once every 3 to 4 months. It could be every quarterly, but probably every 4 months is the cadence that we do. I'm not saying that that's the right cadence for everybody, just giving you an example. You do want to be careful that you don't give your customer survey fatigue, where they feel like you're getting asked every interaction. Every time I call Delta, I'm going to be asked, will you stay on, hit number 2 to stay on to give feedback. And frankly, I never do that unless I've had a good experience and I want to reinforce that, or a bad experience. Right. So, but that's the first thing is the frequency. You just need to figure out what's best for you and your business. As far as how do you make it, I try to make it as pure as possible. So there's a couple things that I really recommend. One is you do not bonus based off NPS. I just feel like that's a bad practice. One is because you're trying to get feedback. You're not trying to gauge the effectiveness of your CSM or sales rep or whatever. So don't use it for that. Use it purely for feedback. And then second is, in order to do that, have it come from somebody who's not their CSM. Usually it comes from me as a CEO or somebody else in our team, maybe Christy, our chief customer officer, or maybe it comes from a customer experience leader or team member. But if you the way that it starts to be gamed is when you have it tied to an individual and their performance, and then it will be gamed. If it comes from Dave and it's from the CEO of the company, who generally is genuinely is asking for feedback about the experience, I've found that it's been much more natural and genuine in the responses. So those are a couple things. Do not use it as a bonus or a performance measure. Use it purely to get feedback from your customers.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective, and I think it's important to remember. I think that's the danger of NPS, especially if it's a metric tied to the boots on the ground in the company. Then you create an incentive to get more, I guess, false positives, right? And you want to avoid that. I love your point about having it come from you or from your, chief customer officer, CEO, or VP of client success, because then it removes some of that incentive, maybe, or the perception of I'm trying to help out my CSM. And I think that's important, but it also raises the question around delivery mechanism. You mentioned Delta doing it on the phone. It sounds like maybe in your case, it might be an email that goes out to customers. Mm-hmm. Have you tested various delivery mechanisms of NPS? And do you feel like you get better results depending on how and where you actually share it?
Yeah, I haven't done extensive testing on various methods of sending it. I think in B2B SaaS, email, it tends to be a good one, or in-app sometimes. Again, it just really depends. There's a lot of users who can't stand to have things in-app. And so they'll almost, what I've heard is sometimes if you do it in-app, they'll actually do a bad mark just to get rid of the pop-up message. And that's why I like email, just because it allows them, it's a way that allows them to do it on their time and doesn't insert ourselves into their flow and those types of things. And so we found that it's fine. Now the response rate, you have to understand, is going to be 10 to 20% sometimes at that low. And again, I recognize I'm not going to get 100% response. I'm just trying to get as many as I can. And I think, one aspect of this is, and I share this thesis with a lot, including Greg as well. I'll bring up his name, is that it's one thing to look at is who consistently does not respond to an NPS, because that's telling you as much as those who are actually responding.
Dave, how do you review the information? I remember I needed therapy after this one. I remember asking my son how I was doing as a dad, and the feedback wasn't great. How do you take action off of feedback? You want to close that loop. What do you look at? What do you follow up with? What do you push back to the CS to follow up with? How does that feedback loop take place? What are some stories you could share? What's some best practices you could share around that?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to share two examples, one with customers and actually one with employees, if you don't mind, because we just did an employee experience survey, and we had an employee NPS component of that. But with customers, the way that we do it is every response is posted to a Slack channel so the whole company can see. Now, we're lucky enough that our product, Client Success, which is a customer success platform, we actually have a native NPS capability in our platform. So we're sending through our platform and we're receiving through the platform. And we also have the ability that every response can go to a Slack channel. So we have a NPS channel in Slack. And so everybody in the company can see every response. And we can see the previous response. If it was somebody who had previously given us an NPS, we can see directionally, did that person go up or down, which is super helpful. And that's on purpose, because we believe we all take responsibility for the customer experience. It's not a customer success team or a customer experience team or sales or the CEO. We all take responsibility for that. Then so that's the first thing is make it visible to everybody. The second thing is that what we do is I review everyone, and I personally respond to all detractors, and I request and ask them if they would be willing to have a follow-up call with me, for the benefit of us learning from their experience. So I personally, an email goes from me, with a Calendly link that invites every detractor to meet with me, and even some of the neutrals. And then our chief customer officer, Christy Falcherusso, responds to all of the promoters and requests, shares a thank you and asks for any follow-up meetings as well. That's been super helpful because, again, if you remember, what our goal is to learn and to start conversations, not just have the score. And so it's been super impactful to be able to go and have these follow-up conversations and dig in and really get additional context and then bring back to the business. And then we'll always, the last thing that we do is that typically Christy has taken the lead on this, is we will send a follow-up to all of our customers to say, hey, this is what we learned. And these are some areas that we're going to focus on in the coming year. We've done that, and that's been super helpful as well to have the transparency. I will say we don't do that every time.
Yeah.
We will follow up on this feedback and send it out to customers. And we usually try to just find 2 or 3 things that are impactful that we'll really focus on for the next quarter or 2.
Jeez. Todd, I'm sold on NPS. Dave might not be in sales, but I just got sold.
Well, I think that, Casey's also, he's a passionate fellow, so it's easy for him to get sold on things.
That's right.
The thing that I think is interesting here, Dave, for me is the running joke of this podcast so far is that I'm kind of the Todd bot. Like, my job is to kind of try to summarize. I'm the Gen AI trying to summarize what we've heard so far. And from my perspective, the thing that sticks out is that if you are willing to disconnect NPS as a predictor of future success and instead use it as a data point to engage your mental faculties as a company to determine priorities and strategic imperatives for the coming year, you're going to be in a much better position. And the thing that I like about what you said the most is the fact that it's not so much, your goal here isn't to, get a metric that you can hang your hat on that says, look how, to toot your own horn to say, look how great we're doing. You want to use that as a way to enhance the likelihood that you have quality conversations with your customers that ensure that you're going to be able to make better informed decisions in the future. So it's less about getting a score, an overall score, and more about identifying places where you can learn from your customer base and use that to enhance both your product and the process and the experience that you give them in the future.
Very well said, Todd. Thank you. You're a good bot, human bot. So
seriously, that was the best AI. You're getting better.
I am. The learning I get, the more input I get, the learning model improves.
The training gets better. Yeah, no, exactly right. And that's what it is. I think the only time the score really matters for us is to give us an initial context into individual sentiment and starting points for the next conversation, and directionally for a company of saying, are we getting better generally as a company? So I do like to see, like, if I did our last one was end of Q3, I believe, the one we did internally, and we'll be launching another one shortly. And I will want to say, collectively as a company, is our overall NPS moving the right direction? That's a positive sign. But it's a positive sign that hopefully that the feedback we've received, we've listened, we've incorporated that, we've improved, and we're improving the overall customer experience, right? We use this in other ways. I just mentioned, we just did an employee experience survey. Same thing. The last question on that was basically, would you recommend client success to a friend to come to client success? And we got feedback there. I will be honest with you that there was some feedback that we received throughout the whole thing that was painful for me to hear as a CEO, personally and collectively as for our company, right? That we're falling short on our employee experience in some areas, and that I'm falling short on communication or articulating, whatever it may be. but the value of that is not to then rush to try to save employees.
Yeah.
That's not the main purpose. The main purpose is to say, okay, what are 2 or 3 things we can do as a leadership team, as a company, to improve the employee experience, and have conversations with team members and colleagues to make this a better place. Just like we're trying to make our company a better place for our customers, we're trying to do the same thing with our employees. And when you put it in that context and in that perspective, it makes it super valuable. Now, not the only thing.
Yep.
With customers, I'm looking at product usage as
Right.
as a feedback message. I'm looking at other types of surveys. I'm looking at expansion. I've got all of these signals that are really important to me, and each one of them I want to value for in the context that they are, not in this bigger, and not one signal is an end all be all. They're all valuable to help me learn, improve, and be better.
Well, Dave, you've said this in a way I've never heard before, because as I've worked with SaaS vendors, one of the things that I consistently hear is leadership wants to get on the phone with customers.
Mm-hmm.
Great. What customer do I introduce them to? And then CS has this 2-week deliberation. Is this the right one to get an executive involved with? What do they have going on? What would they talk about? And everybody stresses out and they never do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I love that you have a data point, whether it's positive or negative, to actually start the conversation with. And it's an easy way for that leader to be involved and follow up. And it's a natural, normal way to do it. So that's something I've never heard before in the approach you're taking, which, if again, CS leaders that we have on this call, I mean, that's a homework assignment I'm taking. I thought that was just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, make it so that the CSM isn't the one required to get the invite,
Right.
because then you're going to get, that goes back to gaming the system a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to be like, well, we only want to let our CEO talk to the best customer, or the one that we
Right.
like the most, or the one that's going to make them, who's going to paint us in the best picture.
Yeah.
And this removes that incentive to kind of game the system a little bit.
Yeah. I'm under the belief that, and I've said this over and over and over again, that you should embrace your most vocal customers. And the reason why I say that is that your most vocal customers care enough to provide the feedback. And that goes back to the whole thing of, like, the concerns you should have are those that aren't providing feedback consistently, that won't get on the phone with you. For me, like, any customer that will get on the phone with me, even if they're the most angry, most difficult customers, human nature says, oh, I really don't want to talk to that customer today. But at least they're willing to give feedback.
Yeah.
And that means a lot. And that's why they say that it's not your most happy customers that typically say. Sometimes it's your loudest, most difficult customers. The reason why they're being difficult is because they care about you the most and they want you to succeed. And so embrace them, listen to them, really understand, even kind of that saying of understand what they mean, not what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And then find just a few things out of these that you'll go and you'll put into initiatives to improve over the next quarter or two. And that's where you'll find the success in leveraging NPS or any other survey capability out there.
Okay, Dave, I answered your NPS score. I gave some negative marks.
Yeah.
You called me on the phone. How does that conversation take place? I set up the time. Are you starting out by saying, hey, I noticed you graded us this way. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, what's some best practices and how to have that conversation? I think there's a lot of leaders that don't feel comfortable in having that conversation. They want to defend themselves. So what are some best practices? I get the happy one. I mean, I'd love to be at your organization and you just send me the happy customers. That sounds like a dream scenario. How do I do it if I'm the person responsible for taking these customers that are voicing a concern?
The way it works is that the response from me is, hey, I received it. I see you gave us a score of whatever it is, a 3. Say if it's a 3. And I acknowledge it looks like that we're not meeting your needs. And I apologize or regret that. I'd love to jump on the phone to understand your experience and what we can do to improve to meet your needs. And that's how I start the conversation. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to provide the feedback. I want to hear. I'm here to listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly. I can't improve unless I truly understand where we're falling short And then that will help inform me as a CEO in making decisions across our business of where we need to invest our time to improve. And I also say communicate that I would rather make small course corrections along the way than get to a point where it's a major course correction, or course corrections are not even on the table. And so I am genuinely asking or begging them to be open and honest. Now, trust me, there's been some times where I've been mortified on these calls, and I just feel, it's one of those things where you'll just get on the phone with your wife after and go, "Oh, you will not believe I just got roasted." But it's those always end in a good thing, in that if you're genuinely looking for ways to improve, sometimes you have to hear what you need to hear, not always what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really trying to dig for the customers, is to tell me what I need to hear, not necessarily what I want to hear. Hearing what I want to hear doesn't do me any good, because it doesn't give me any direction on what to do next. And I'm genuinely looking for feedback of what we need to hear, so that we can improve.
Dave, your analogy of the relationship with your spouse is one that maybe hits a little bit too home for me, or too close to home for me, because when I'm really worried about my wife is whenever she doesn't say anything. Right.
Exactly, right?
Everybody's experience that, I'm sure, is whenever your wife won't talk to you and whenever she withdraws from you, that's whenever you're, or when she just says, "I'm fine," or "everything's fine," that's whenever you're really in trouble. And so what I think is what's interesting to your point is, the vocal customers, whether they give you a bad score or a good score, those are the ones that you want to embrace. And that you're probably in a better space with the customer who gave you a negative score than the person who just withdrew and gave you no score. So I want to ask you a really important question, which comes to me, which is, what do you do for the people who aren't engaging? Because I love that point of, if they didn't answer, or they're never answering, they're the ones who are probably more at risk because they're withdrawing. And so what do you do to bring those people back? Is there a strategy or things that you've worked to figure out, how do I engage the people who aren't giving me that feedback?
Yeah, great question. And so the key thing here is I'm looking for engagement. Engagement is one of the best signals of success with any partnership, right? Whether it's our spouse or whether it's a customer. So if I have customers who are not engaging, then I'm looking at other creative signals or strategies to engage them. So that might be a different survey. It may be just an email from from the CEO, asking for an opportunity to meet. It's whatever creative ways that you can do. It may be, "Hey, I'm jumping on a plane, as a CEO or a CSM or a leader, and I'm going to go to that city, and I'm going to see if I can engage that person by, letting them know I'm going to be in town." There's a myriad of ways to do it. It's just the key thing is to figure out creative ways to engage customers, and especially those that are ghosting you, that are not talking, that are not engaging in all ways. I would take that as a very strong signal of potential risk, versus the other situations. And we've done it in so many different ways. Even a breakup email sometimes works. I did that with somebody the other day that just said, "Hey, I'm not hearing from you. It sounds like that we're not, in this situation, it wasn't a customer, it's a different partner, but it sounds like that maybe it's not the right timing. And so if I'm wrong, let me know." And a lot of times something even like that will be like, engage people. "Oh, the response was, 'I'm sorry. Something happened that I just was out of pocket for a week,' or whatever." And then they're engaging. And so I think, but then you just look at a different channel or different creative ways to try to engage customers for that conversation.
Dave, as we interview a lot of great people, and I'll go to a CS 100 conference or a bunch of different conferences, you hear the same terminology a lot. You hear people say the same things over and over again, a lot of platitudes. Dave, you actually believe what you're saying and you do it, which is I can just feel it. You just know it. How did you get to this mindset versus just check marking boxes and doing NPS and check, we do this and we do this, we do this? You actually care. How did you get to that mindset? Was it education you received when you were at Adobe? Is it podcasts you listen to? How did you get to that mindset of embracing this?
I think there's two things. One is I love relationships. I'm in this space. I've been in the customer success space for most of my career because I like relationships. I like engaging people. I like to help drive value and see people succeed. And that's why I was in the space before. That's why I founded a company in this space. So generally, it's just my personality. I like to engage with people. Um, our mission is building relationships that last. And it's not a coincidence that's it, because that's kind of my personality, right? At least I try. But then also the school of hard knocks, to be honest with you, right? And battle scars that I've got up and down, where I've learned the importance of really engaging with customers and asking the tough questions and not being afraid to engage. Because there was a time early in my career where I was a young professional trying to manage large at Adobe. These are multi-million-dollar relationships. And we had very, very difficult challenges. And there were times when I just wanted to crawl into a cave and hide and just I did not want to talk to the customer. I did not want to face up to that difficult conversation, until I learned that it's the difficult conversations that actually propelled the relationship forward.
Wow.
And if you think about it, this is such an important thing for young CSMs to realize, is that if you will embrace the difficult conversation with your customer and you do it with class and you own up to it personally, and the company owns up to it, it's a way to increase the relationship and drive that long-term retention and growth. And I can't tell you how many times that the fact that you own up to a challenge when you think that they're gonna leave and they're gonna, you're never gonna see them, you end up having this long-term relationship that lasts beyond the vendor partner relationship. I've got people who I had the most difficult conversations with as at Omniture and Adobe, but now on Facebook they're wishing me happy birthday and we're good friends and things like that. And that's because we weren't afraid to have open, honest conversations for the benefit of both companies, both people, landing in a better spot. And so I'm not perfect at it, but I do believe that, and continue to try to do that in various relationships.
Dave, I often like to say that trust or confidence in any relationship usually comes down to three things, and you've hit on all three of them really well. Which is one is the first one I think you've emphasized really strongly is that people believe that you're genuine and honest and open and transparent, and you're not afraid to like lean into the hard stuff or to the icky stuff. So that I think is awesome. The second one that comes up to me oftentimes is that they want to know that you're capable. They want to know that you're competent. They want to know that you have the ability to actually do something about it once you have that open conversation. And then the third one, which I think is one of the things that I've noticed really strongly about you, and when you focus on that idea of relationships, that people want to know that you genuinely care about them. So if you have those three things, you're going to be able to build the confidence, but you can't build that trust unless you're willing to be vulnerable and be honest, show that you really care about them, and demonstrate that you have the ability to actually win and to do the things they want.
Yeah. And it is. Sometimes you just have to say, I screwed up or we screwed up and I'm sorry. And then sometimes you have to say, I can't solve your problem. I think a lot of times we try to be yes men and yes women sometimes, as far as like, we just want to please. And we say, we'll solve this, or we can, or we'll put it on our roadmap. And that's the other thing I found is that individuals want to, they would rather hear no, or I can't, than yes, and then not deliver. And so I think those, again, through a lot of scars and experience, through decades in doing what I've done, I've learned that and try to instill that in our team members as well.
Gosh, Dave, I know I mentioned this at the start about the CS 100, but I really do want you to talk just a little bit more about that. So if people want to be involved with this community, they know how to get started with that. it's a breeding ground for people like you that are looking to build these lasting relationships and help people become successful. So if you wouldn't mind just spending 2 or 3 minutes explaining a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you bet. So CS100 Summit is a summit that we put on for client success. Again, we're a customer success platform a solution in the space. And we wanted to create an experience with the top leaders in the customer success space. And we knew that we didn't want, when we thought about building our own conference or summit, we didn't want the biggest in the space. We wanted to create an experience. We wanted to bring like-minded people together in an amazing location with amazing content and be able to build connection, right? To develop connections in these relationships that last. And so we created this concept called the CS100 Summit. We've hosted it typically in Sundance Mountain Resort in Utah, which for those who haven't been there, it's spectacular. It's breathtaking. Up in the mountains, it was Robert Redford's resort, up in the mountains of Utah, and just this quaint, beautiful, comfortable resort. So we get there and we bring the best and the brightest in customer success together for 3 days of networking, knowledge sharing, and fun. So in addition to the great content that we do amazing activities. We get people on the mountain to zip line, to mountain bike, to horseback ride, to enjoy the spa or jewelry making. And what we love about this is the connections that are built there. I can't tell you how many people out there who it's so gratifying to sit back and say, hey, I met at the CS100 Summit and I met, the two of us, and now we're lifelong friends. And that's really gratifying for us. And so certainly it's something for our business, client success, but we really try to emphasize a leadership experience and a relationship experience and an experience with nature there. There's nothing like it in SaaS, I think. Anyway.
It's so true. Dave, you've been an awesome guest. I love the insights that you've shared with us today, and I hope that our audience can go away and take some practical thoughts about how they can have more genuine and open conversations with their customers and be willing to listen to the vocal voice, even if they're not always happy, because that will do so much in helping you better to understand how to improve the customer journey. At the end of these podcasts, we always like to ask our guests one really important question, which is, this is therapy. You've got homework. So what homework would you give our audience today after this conversation?
I would, the feedback I would give, the homework I would give is find any way possible to embrace your most vocal customers. Engage them, learn from them, improve, close the loop and not be afraid to have those conversations, and use it as one method to improve yourself as a leader, as a company, and as a business. And I know you'll get a lot of value out of it.
It's awesome. Todd, looks like I got to take you to lunch since you're my most vocal customer. So
it's true. I have lots of negative things to tell you, Casey. You're easily a 3 on my NPS.
McDonald's is on me next time, Todd.
You just moved up to a 6. You're back into the neutral. We're good. Thanks, bro.
And I'll join to document it and enjoy a cheeseburger there.
Dave, thank you so much, brother. We're so glad to have you here. And thanks everyone for coming. And don't forget to lean into the data, listen to the feedback from your customers, and figure out how you can keep those relationships. So thank you, Dave.
All right. Thanks guys. Thanks for having me.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.